welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into a story that's really making waves in the NBA, the pretty shocking basketball divorce between the Portland Trail Blazers and Deandre Ayton.
Yeah, it's quite something.
It really is, and this isn't just, a simple contract thing. It feels much bigger, like a really dramatic split. So our mission today is to figure out how this all went sour so fast, what this kind of costly breakup actually means,
Right.
and importantly, where did the Blazers even go from here? Because this tears up a pretty significant part of their recent plans. We've got some great material to work with, so let's dive in and try to make sense of it all.
Sounds good. It's genuinely wild how quickly this shifted. I mean, he was a major piece they acquired, and now it really shows you how fast things change in the league.
It really does, like overnight sometimes.
Yeah.
So for people listening who follow the game but maybe aren't, deep in the salary cap weeds, the first question has to be, what exactly is a buyout, and why is this Ayton one so, noteworthy?
Okay, yeah, good place to start. So basically, an NBA buyout, at its core, it's an agreement. The player and the team mutually decide, okay, let's end this contract early.
Right.
The player gives up some of the money he's still owed, not usually all of it, but a chunk. And the reason they do that is often to get free, to go sign somewhere else, maybe with a team that's closer to winning.
Okay, makes sense. An Ayton specific situation.
So Ayton, he had 1 year left on his deal, and it was a big number, $35.5 million.
Wow. Okay. And our sources are saying this isn't like standard operating procedure, is it? This feels pretty extreme for a player like him.
Oh, it's absolutely extreme. Extremely rare, I'd say. You just don't see this often with a former #1 overall pick, someone who was, let's not forget, the main return in a blockbuster trade only about a year ago.
Yeah.
For a team to basically say, we will pay millions of dollars not to have you on the roster anymore. I mean, that tells you just how bad things must have gotten behind the scenes.
So it really is as kind of desperate as it looks.
I think so, yeah. The sources really highlight that. Now, he'll go on waivers. That's the process where other teams get a shot at claiming his existing contract.
Right, but that's unlikely given the salary.
Highly unlikely anyone claims him at that number. So he'll almost certainly clear waivers, become a free agent, and then, probably sign somewhere for, the veteran minimum with a contender looking for a center.
Okay, so we understand the buyout, the mechanics, but the big question everyone's asking is why? How did this relationship just completely fall apart so quickly? What's the inside scoop on this divorce?
Well, piecing it together from the reports, it really seems to boil down to just a fundamental lack of fit, both on the court, within the Blazers system, maybe their timeline, and off the court, too.
Off the court? Like what?
There were reports, you mentioned them earlier, things like Ayton being fined for tardiness, little things maybe, but they can add up, suggest things aren't quite right,
Mm-hmm. The locker room vibes, as they say.
Exactly, but I think the clearest signal, the really undeniable one, came straight from the front office during the draft.
The draft picks. Right.
Yeah, Portland drafted 2 centers, Klingon and Hansen, both lottery picks. I mean, you can't send a much louder message than that. It basically screamed, you are not our long-term future at this position.
Even before he'd really had a chance to settle in, essentially.
Pretty much. It was like being replaced before you even unpacked your bags, metaphorically speaking.
Wow. So it sounds like after that, the writing was on the wall, and eventually Ayton just asked out.
That seems to be the case. And interestingly, him asking out, it actually might have saved the Blazers some money, maybe $5 million, maybe up to $10 million in actual cash they don't have to pay out now compared to what they might have owed.
Huh. So a slight silver lining for them financially, even in this mess.
A small one, perhaps. But yeah, it looks like a combination of those sour vibes, the fit issues, and just that feeling of being pushed out by the draft picks. It just became irreconcilable.
Okay, so Ayton's gone. Now Portland has to deal with the aftermath, financially speaking. What does this mean for their salary cap, their spending power, like that mid-level exception and, the luxury tax?
Right, the financial maze. So immediately, it impacts their calculations for the mid-level exception, the MLE, which is that key tool teams use to sign free agents when they're over the cap.
Right.
And it definitely affects their luxury tax position, how much they might have to pay in penalties for having a high payroll. The tax is like that super expensive speeding ticket in the NBA. The further over the limit you go, the worse the penalty gets.
Got it. And then there's this stretch provision thing. What's that about?
Yeah, that's the big decision point for them right now. Ayton's buyout number, let's say it's around $30 million. They still owe him after the give back. They can choose to stretch that $30 million cap hit over 3 years instead of taking it all in this upcoming season.
So $10 million per year for 3 years instead of $30 million all at once.
Exactly. It gives them immediate relief, frees up cap space right now, which might look tempting if they want to, say, be players in free agency this summer.
But there has to be a catch, right? Stretching money owed to a player who isn't even there anymore. That sounds risky long term.
There's absolutely a catch. It's a significant one. While you get that short-term breathing room, you're limiting your future flexibility. You've got dead money on your books. Cap space allocated to a player not on the team for 3 whole years.
Right. Less money for other players down the line.
Precisely. Less money for extensions, for trades, for future free agents. So the choice, as our sources put it so well, is like, do you rip the bandage off quickly now, take the full hit immediately?
Or do you, tape the wound shut and deal with a slower, longer healing process?
That's the analogy, yeah. Eat the loss now versus stretch it out. It's a really tough call. Do you prioritize immediate cap health or preserve longer-term flexibility? There's no easy answer.
That's a fantastic way to put it. It really highlights the dilemma. You deal with the pain now, clear the books for a truly fresh start.
Yeah.
Or you spread it out, but maybe hamstring yourself a bit in the future.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just the numbers, right? It's about organizational strategy. Short-term gain versus potential long-term pain play out with millions of dollars under a very public spotlight.
And speaking of the spotlight, this whole thing inevitably shines it brightly on Joe Cronin, the Blazers GM. Ayton wasn't just any player. He was maybe the key piece coming back in that massive Damian Lillard trade.
Yeah.
This buyout. It feels like a pretty significant admission, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, you can't really spin it any other way. Acquiring a player of Ayton's draft pedigree, his status in that specific trade, and then barely a year later, you're paying him a substantial amount of money to leave. It looks like, well, an indirect admission that part of that trade, at least, didn't work out.
A failure.
It's hard to argue otherwise. And it raises that question, how much is a team willing to pay just to undo a previous move? What does that signal?
And is this part of a bigger picture? Some of the analysis suggests Cronin has had a few instances of needing to sort of clean up past moves. Is that fair?
Well, the sources we looked at definitely point towards that narrative. The idea that Cronin can't keep paying to undo past mistakes. It becomes a pattern if it keeps happening.
Especially with the team sale potentially looming, right?
Exactly. That adds another layer of pressure, an ongoing sale.
Yeah.
New ownership might come in and look very closely at these kinds of long-term financial commitments stemming from, let's call them course corrections. Short-term decisions now have potentially magnified long-term consequences under new ownership.
So when you step back, Lillard is gone. Ayton is now bought out. And from that huge trade, there's, not much tangible to show for it right now.
That's the stark reality of it, yeah. No major return performing on the court yet from that franchise-altering trade. It's a tough spot.
Okay, so they're undeniably at a crossroads. Lillard gone, Ayton gone, a costly separation finalized. Where do the Blazers go from here? What are the next steps?
Well, it creates possibilities, I suppose. If they do clear significant cap space by taking a hit now, maybe they try to be aggressive in free agency, look for different kinds of fits.
Or maybe they lean into the youth.
That seems more likely and perhaps more logical given their timeline. This absolutely clears the runway for player development. Those 2 centers they drafted, Klingon and Hansen, they're going to get thrown into the fire. They'll get real development minutes, as the sources say.
Trial by fire. Crucial experience they might not have gotten otherwise.
Exactly. It's on-the-job training at the highest level. That's how you find out what you really have in young players. So that's a potential positive building for the future.
And then there's still that ownership question hanging over everything. How much does that influence the long-term plan?
It's the huge wild card, isn't it? A new owner could come in with a completely different vision, a different tolerance for a long rebuild, different spending philosophies. It could reshape everything.
So really, the fundamental question is the one our sources pose. Can Portland actually build something sustainable out of all this? Out of the Lillard trade aftermath, the Ayton buyout? Can they finally chart a clear path forward?
That is the million-dollar question. Or maybe the $30 million question in this case. They've cleared away some obstacles, sure, but building something lasting requires more than just available cap space. It needs a coherent vision, smart drafting, player development.
And consistent execution.
Consistent execution, absolutely.
Which brings us right back to where we started. This Deandre Ayton buyout, it's not just noise. It's a major inflection point. It puts the Blazers squarely at a crossroads.
Couldn't agree more. This could genuinely be chapter 1 of a new era for them. Painful, expensive, yes, but maybe necessary to truly start fresh.
Yeah.
Or it could just be another detour, another costly misstep in what's already been a pretty difficult rebuilding process. We don't know yet. But their next moves, they're going to tell us an awful lot about which path they're actually on. We'll definitely be watching.